I want to thank all of you guys for joining us today here at the beautiful NSU Art Museum's auditorium. My name is Evan Snow. I'm the co-founder and managing partner of Art Fort Lauderdale, the art fair on the water, which is taking place with the last day being today. So we created a series of artDiscourse talks, and we wanted to make them free and open to the community with the help of a Community Foundation of Broward grant from the Frank and Helen Soykovic Fund to bring brilliant minds such as these to our community and give our community front row access for free to leaders in AI art, blockchain and cryptocurrency art, people that are pushing the needle forward in social justice art, and just really brilliant minds to give our community front row access to these minds in ways that they've never had it before. So we want to thank the Community Foundation of Broward. We want to thank NSU Art Museum for hosting us today as well. We'll go from there.
So we are the three members of Obvious. We are a French collective of artists doing art with AI algorithm. The idea is to create art with new technology in order to see and explain what it is and what it can do. We will talk today about all we achieved since 1 year. We had a lot of things happening, so I hope you will enjoy it. So the three of us know each other since a really long time. We are friends from childhood, and we are also like roommates. We're living together in the center of Paris. Our story begins about one year ago. As you can see, we know each other for the long time. Our mother were dressing up like the same when we were really young, so we know each other for a very, very long time. Hugo just there is a PhD student in machine learning, so he's the guy in charge of all the tech. We are like really interested in new technology, but he's the only one who can code artificial intelligence. Because we are living together, we have a lot of discussion about all those subjects, but he's the guy in charge of the algorithm. I don't know how to code that, and he's kind of brilliant mathematician. So my background is more an economic background, and so does Gauthier. We have been like growing up in the suburbs of Paris, and we like decided after like our studies to join together to go in the same flat to create and move forward this kind of art. So the basis was to create something together. We didn't knew that we will become artists at the beginning. We just wanted to work together, to have some good ideas, etc. So that's how it begins. We had the chance to have parents who are like really into art. They're really interested like that, and they have giving us the chance to travel around the world, to go in museums. So we don't have like an artistic background. We didn't do artistic school, etc. But we had artistic culture through our education, etc. So how it begins, Hugo will tell you right now. Should I speak about that? Or yeah, okay. Okay, so the story begins with all those images. Like, what you can see is people who do not exist. Those people are created by an algorithm. Basically, you give a lot of images of portraits of faces to an algorithm, and he understands what is a face, and he creates another one. So all the story begins with Hugo showing us that kind of images, who totally blew our mind. Like, first of all, we fall in love with the power of those algorithms. For example, this is the result, it's scientific results. So it was in 2016, and then at the moment, the result has this kind of result. So all those people do not exist. They are created by an algorithm, and you can really see that you cannot make the difference between a photo and an image generated like that. So when Hugo showed us this kind of images, we fall in love with the technology first, because this is really impressive, and you can imagine a world with a lot of images generated like that. So we were fascinated about those technology. And because we were living together, at one point, like, we decided to discuss about all those technology in our sofa in the center of Paris, and the what if question begins. Like, what if we create art with this kind of technology? Is that art? Who is the artist? Is that the algorithm or is that us? So all those questions asking through those technology, we fall in love with the philosophical debates, and during weeks we just discuss about all these subjects, like does those kind of algorithm have creativity or not? So we were really fan of this philosophical aspect, so we decided to go for it and to try to create some artworks who can be who can be interesting for the art world, and to ask all the questions I just talked about, because we don't have the answer. We just want to ask questions and to open a discussion with people. So that's why we are working in that field. So we wanted to create a first collection, and here it comes.
So I'm Hugo, and I'm going to explain you a bit how the algorithm works, because it's important to know how it works before getting into what we did with it, and what are the artworks that we did, and everything that happened next. So how does it work? Basically, you need the first thing you need is data. So you need a database of images. An important aspect of this database is that these images should have some kind of common features, you know, so only portraits, only cats, or something like this. And so once you get your data, then you have two algorithms that are competing each other. We like to do a metaphor in order to better understand how the algorithm works. It's kind of like you have a student and a teacher in an art school, and the teacher asks the student to make a piece of work that looks like Picasso, maybe. And so at first, the student, which is not trained, is going to do an artwork, and it will be very easy to make a difference between a real Picasso and what the student did. And so the teacher is able to make a difference between the two artworks, and then he's going to tell the student, yeah, I can make a difference. And then the goal of the student would be to fool the teacher into thinking what he does looks like is actually a real Picasso. And so there is a back and forth transfer of information between the two parts, the student and the teacher. And then in the end, hopefully, if the algorithm is trained right, then the teacher doesn't know how to make a difference between a real and a fake Picasso, and then the student is able to generate realistic images. And so here it's kind of the same thing. So let's say we take the example of portraits, because we have a collection with portraits. And so we used a database of 15,000 images of portraits, classical portraits ranging from the 14th to the 19th century. And so you have like the generator, which is the student in my metaphor that generates an image, and then the discriminator, which is the teacher that tries to make a difference between real images and the images generated by the generator. And then the training process happens in the computer, and in the end you get this type of output. So these are like outputs of an algorithm that has been trained on portraits. So here you can see, can I go back? Yeah. So here you can see that it's able to generate portraits. This portrait looks a bit fuzzy, a bit blurry. It's because so now as we can see before, you can have kind of better results, but this is what we did. And so the result is kind of blurry because of the algorithm. It was not like it's actually still ongoing research how to make this algorithm able to create really high definition images. And so once you have these portraits that are generated, we selected the 11 that we thought were the best, and that better explain how what the algorithm was capable of. So like some portraits that look like they were made with water painting, some portraits from the 14th, from the 16th century. So we tried to make like a wide range of portraits so that we can show that the algorithm is able to generate really different stuff. And so then it began. Okay. And so once we have these portraits, then there is the whole first. So that's what Pierre talked about, is that there is lots of interrogation about, is this art? Is this creative process? Is this creation process is the creative process ours, or is the creative process more on the machine side? And so what would be the reaction of people when they hear about this being pointed as art? So it was the first integration that we had when we made our first portrait, which was Le Comte de Bellamy. And so
Yep. So before creating like the series of portraits that you'll see a bit afterwards, we had like quite a long period of experimentation. So we wanted to see what the limits of the algorithm were. If we could, like, for example, the first one was narrowing the sample down to one artist. So basically, here with portraits, there were like many different artists, many different styles, and we wanted to see if working with like data that is really similar one with another could work. So here, for example, we tried to recreate a Rothko. We also tried to enlarge the subject to like a wider data set. So for example, we tried it with expressionism, so a very wide range of data, but there were also like more data, so it could so like the algorithm couldn't better understand like the colors and stuff, but couldn't get to a precise result. We also tried to mix data. So the third example here, we mixed a sample of butterflies with a sample of flowers and tried to trick the algorithm into thinking that they are both the same. So the output is like kind of a mix between butterfly and flowers. So those are like the first steps of experiments with those algorithms. And of course, like when many artists will like grab this technology in their hands, we will probably see like new ways of using those algorithms emerging, and it will probably be a super interesting period.
So then we settled down on our artistic approach, because we had all of these questions, and we had the tools in hand to kind of like being able to ask this question. But we already knew that this type of algorithm were not commonplace for the general audience. You know, like people are not aware of this type of algorithms, but people are aware about AI, because AI is all over the news, it's all over media, it's all over, like, it's a hot topic right now, because there is like a lot of investments in AI, and also research is kind of making breakthroughs in AI like this. And so that's one point. And another point is that AI is also like, has been a very important topic for like hundreds of years, because we are always wondering what will happen when we can create intelligence and create intelligent systems. What will happen, like economically, in the society, also politically. So it's a very deep subject, and I think it's a subject that matters for every human. You know, so it's a very important topic, and we thought that we wanted to take the opportunity of having this knowledge about what is AI right now, in order to use our artwork to convey a message of what is AI right now. So we could explain it more, demystifying it also, and also create this philosophical debate around can machine machine can be tools for art creation, but what will happen when also a machine will be what is the role of the machine in this creative process. So we think it's an interesting question. And also, so I'm a scientist, so I'm always very happy and I'm grateful that these guys are really into science too. So that we are really interested into bringing science and art together. It's something that has been done for the longest time, and we are in the continuity of this movement. We think it's very interesting to bridge the gap between the two. So one important aspect of our artworks. So we decided to make it very easy to be understood by the general audience. So once we had our portraits, we had like the portraits generated by the computer. We thought it was a good idea to have a physical piece rather than sharing it like on Twitter or maybe on social media. We thought it was interesting to have a physical piece, and then we wanted to have something really recognizable and that people that would be easy to apprehend for people. So we decided to have our artworks in golden wooden frames, like you can see in museum or in history books. And we decided to assign the portraits with the mathematical formula that is at the core of the algorithm, which make the algorithm works, basically. And so we signed the artworks with this formula rather than like signing with Pierre Gauthier and Hugo. And so it was also a way to relate to the whole debate around what is the role of the machine in this creative process. So that's when we created the Bellamy Family. So this is our portrait collection. It's 11 portraits that are related. So we created a family tree, and all the different members of the family are related to each other. And so it's called the Bellamy Family because the generative adversarial network, the algorithm that we use, it was invented in 2014 by a researcher named Ian Goodfellow. And Goodfellow roughly translates to Bellamy in French. So we wanted to have a way to acknowledge that we are very thankful that this person invented this type of algorithms. And so also something that not a lot of people know is that there is a description with each of the portraits that kind of relates to what we think about this technology. So we think it can have some very positive aspects. It can be used in a lot of ways positively, and also there is, like with every technology, there is a way to use it negatively or to different ends, I would say. And so you can have a different perception of this technology. So each portrait comes with a description that is kind of a metaphor for what we think this technology can be used. So we have some of these artworks that have been sold to collectors that contacted us or that we contacted. So they are all around the world, in USA, India, France, Germany. And so we're very thankful that we're able to bring artworks and bring our message in different places in the world, and to it means a lot for us to know that our message kind of can be understood that by many people and many different cultures, I would say. And then so we had a big event this year on the 25th of October, where so Christie's approached us to have one of these artwork, actually the last one, which is Edmond de Bellamy. So they approached us and they wanted to sell this artwork in auction in New York. So we accepted, of course. And then so there was with this event there was a lot of media and press around this, with the whole debate and everything. So everyone gave his own opinion on the subject. It was a really interesting period for us, really stressful also, but really interesting. And so it kind of snowballed a bit, and there was like a lot of hype around this sale, and lots of people were talking about it. So once the auction happened, it was estimated at $10,000, and the thing kind of went a bit crazy, and it sold for 40, 40, 435. It's 442,050 actually, but so it's sold for a lot, and so we also have like the free remaining artworks that will be hopefully sold and in a private sale at Christie's with all the bidders that didn't got the chance to have the Edmond de Bellamy. So
yeah, now I'm gonna let you know a bit more about what we currently do and like what is our job like from day to day. So this is our flat. This is a picture of us pretending to work, and yeah. So mostly we do talks. Something about our art is that it's really conceptual. So it's really like the whole process behind the creation that is interesting, and you might not like the final visual, but the whole process and all the question it raises is interesting. So we have to go to people and to talk about what we do and explain everything. So there was a conference in a museum in France, and another one in the south of France for like a festival of electronic music, technology, and classical music. We also do like some talks in schools. So we did like the Royal College of Art. SDS is a peer school in France, so it's kind of a business school. But it's always like really nice to give back what we learned from a really short experience, but really intense. And the third one is an art school in France called ICAR, where we did like a round table and to talk about what we do. So this is a big part of our daily occupations. We also do shows like on a more like kind of business oriented side. So we have like a technology that is really new for like the general people, but also for corporations. So they often invite us to show our artworks and how our technology works to see if it can be applicable to business stuff.
So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Here, as bonus, is it's the generation video. So it's the creation process of one of the Bellamy portraits, and so you can see the algorithm getting better and better as training progresses. So yeah, now we can move on to the Q&A, and yeah, we'll be happy to answer our questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Any questions from the audience?
The algorithm is, you described it as a training algorithm. Are you interacting with the algorithm as the process is taking place?
Yeah, so I'm a bit used to this word because it's the word that is used like in the scientific community, where we refer to as training rather than something that is more like a batch or like one, because there is several iteration. So you do like one process, then you go back to the beginning and repeat it until the algorithm is finished, you know. But you have like some repetition, some trial and error, and that's why it's referred to as training, because the algorithm gets better and better, and then you have some kind of criteria where once this metric is at this point, we stop the training, you know. But we refer to as training because it's a trial and error thing.
Yeah.
But you are the master. No. You are the master of the iterations.
So what I do is that you define the schedule before. So you define, okay, the algorithm will do, so do step 1, do step 2, then go back to step 1, okay? You define this is the algorithm, and then the end point is, so do step 1, do step 2, and if there is some kind of condition, end the process. And then you click on enter. It does this loop until the finishing criteria is met, and once it's met, you get the result that you saw here.
Yeah, I will add that something really funny is like we do not ask him to do special stuff. The thing is we want the algorithm to be as free as possible to create, so we do not interfere with the results. So we just give it the database. The training process that Hugo just described is going on, and we got the results. But the idea is to be less to touch less the algorithm in the process.
Yeah, and in practice, actually, what you have is that you will run the algorithm once. It will give you some kind of outputs. If you most likely you will think, okay, I need some better outputs, or it can like not work, and then you have to tune some parameters in the algorithm to make to run it once again, and hopefully the results are better. And then it's up to you and to your understanding of the algorithm to tune the parameter well, because you have some intuition. You know that this parameter will control, I don't know, something about this, about the output, so I want to change this in this way. So yeah, so there is like a back and forth, lots of trial and error also in the human side, because you try to run the algorithm several times, and once you have like a good version of your algorithm, you will launch it for a last time, and then you'll get the result that you wanted in the first place.
And the output is a standard digital file?
Yeah, it's like a JPEG file. So yeah.
And then how does that get to a final product?
And so what we did here,
the physical final product.
Yeah. So what we did here, it was the resolution of the image is actually very low because of the computational costs, and so it's easier to have like tiny images. It's 128 pixels square, and then we ran some upscaling algorithm that are going to take the same image and put it on high definition. And then we worked with a French art printer. So we went in town and we saw some art printers, and then we settled down with one that we thought was good enough. We selected the paper, then it was printed on canvas, and then you have the artwork. And then we put the golden wooden frame and signed it by hand.
So the work that was sold at Christie's was on canvas?
Yeah. It was on canvas. Like it's like a 70 centimeters square. I don't know about centimeters here, but yeah, I don't know if you. It's like it's this big.
What are your thoughts around creating a new form of art without feeding the data that was previously created by people, with a method where you collect the input from people, let's say this audience, and then use a method like reinforced learning to be able to create new form, or competing two missions with each other to come up with a new solution? So just the overall, have you guys thought about creating new form of art using the machine?
And so, what is the question?
So your methodology was mostly about using historic data to be able to create a variation of that using AI. Rather than going that, have you guys thought about let the machine creating a new form of art, which is not yet defined?
Yeah. So I would say that's actually a really good question. But what we do, we do what we can do. So when you think about creativity, I think one of the first step would be if I want you to picture a house in your head, maybe you are going to think about all the houses that you saw in your life, and kind of like based on this, you are going to make form a new house in your head. So that's one way to see creativity. Here is the way that the algorithm uses this way, but I agree that there is a wide range of types of creativity, and maybe like using machines can lead to new forms of art, and not only based on what human did. But for the moment, and that's what we are trying to say also in our message, AI is not advanced enough to do this type of thing. You know, like the state-of-the-art research in AI is actually not that much. It's not that far. You know, like what we have is that we have algorithms that are really, really good on one particular task, and but it has no intention. It cannot like generalize its knowledge to other stuff, and so it's really different from what we can dream of doing. Because what you're describing is really exciting, but it's kind of like really not possible technically, I would say.
Yeah. Also, something we really like. So something we love is the parallel between classical art and new technology, and we want to stay on that line, and that's why we didn't like push forwards like the abstract stuff, etc. Because our artistic approach is to make people understand what is technology and where it goes, and it's always easier with something that speaks to everybody. The classical art with a golden wooden frame speaks to everybody. Everybody have seen that kind of art in a museum or like in a history book. So when you see our picture or our art, you can refer to something, and it's really harder with abstract art or etc. So that's why we choose that. But actually, we are really like looking forward to new stuff, and why not when they do something more abstract or more like letting the algorithm do something that we cannot expect. But for the moment, we are really in that democratization and parallel with classical art.
And also to add to that, to balance like what we can imagine what we can imagine to do in the future would be maybe to do something more personalized. So to use current data of people to train an algorithm to make an artwork for someone. So maybe that's the next step. But this is also we're a bit far away from that, because you need like a very large amount of data, and you need to be able to combine all different types of data. So we're not there yet, but maybe that's the next step before reaching what you're talking about.
Good evening, good afternoon. You guys are saying offer this new tool to other artists. It means it's a kind of open source, or it's available for other artists, or we need to have a contact with you, or?
Yeah, no. So like we said, so the collection that we did is named Bellamy because the guy that invented the algorithm is named Ian Goodfellow. And so what he did actually in 2014 is, so he conducted research in, it was in Montreal, in Mila. And so what he did is that he was conducting his research. He wrote a research paper, and then he submitted it to a conference. It was accepted to a conference. Then he gave a talk at the conference. He gave code. He gave all the tools that you need to use this algorithm. That's how research work. Like if you come up with a new idea, you have to give all the tools to people studying it in order for them to understand it and to understand that it does work. It's a new idea. And to confirm that it's a scientific discovery. So every material related to generative adversarial network is available online. That's how the research community works, and because you need that kind of reproducibility in science. It's like a common thing in every scientific domain.
The reason I had a question is because I'm doing ZBrush sculptures, I'm doing portraits, and I was wondering if I can feed the computer with, you already answered the question, you guys are doing 3D scanning, right? You have tens of thousands of 3D scanned portraits around the world. So the software can handling 3D models, like OBJs or stuff like that?
So what it works is that, so it's available online and everything, but there is a caveat, is that the thing is that these are not packed into softwares that are ready to use for anybody. So you have to have like some kind of knowledge, or at least some programming skills to make the algorithm work. It's not like something like Photoshop where you buy a software, then you can run it through your software and then it's right. So you have to like dig some research articles that have some code attached to it. Then it will be most certainly on GitHub, which is like a platform for code sharing. And so then you can take this code and then you can run it in your computer, but then also you need to have the right machines to do so. So you cannot run this on your computer. It will take years. So you need some special machines that are really, really expensive actually, where you can where you can perform some very heavy computational operations. And so you need to have all of this to make it work. So it's kind of like there is a big barrier before being able to use this. So, and that's also why we're doing this, is that I think that if it gets more and more popular, I think people will be interested in creating softwares that anybody can use. And so, and then it will be more available to any artist, and that would be really great, because like the project that you mentioned, like it could be really great, you know, and it's a tool that you could use. So yeah,
he is really humble, but it's really hard to manage that. Like he spent a lot of time like trying to figure it out how it can work, because as he said, like this is not pre-packaged, so you have to really dig it out. A lot of time he do not talk about it, but it's not working. You have to find some different way, and this is you have to be like a PhD student in machine learning for now to get those new tools. But we are sure that in few years all those algorithms will be inside like a specific software, like ZBrush or Photoshop, or all those big companies will be interested about like give some new features in their software, and maybe features with GANs.
But basically you need access to machines and programming skills to make it run today. It's like the least you have to have.
Hi guys, I'm an artist too. So you got a tool that you've created to create art, and it's what I want to talk about is kind of philosophical, really, and there's no right or wrong answer, but I'd like to hear your opinions. So, are you taking the humanity out of art by using a computer? You know, and I don't know if that's, I think what you've done here is beautiful, and I really applaud your teamwork, I applaud your creativity, your intelligence, and it's cool to me to see what you're doing. You're using a tool to create art, which I think is always a good thing. But you mentioned the downside of it too, artificial intelligence, and I don't know. So let's get back to the humanity of the art. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So something really important is a question often asked to us is, who is the artist? Is that you, or is that the computer, the algorithm? And the answer is pretty simple. As you can see, we are working from the beginning until the end. So as an artist, you have to choose a subject. The machine do not choose any subject. We choose the classical portrait. So first of all, that. Then you have to gather data. That's exactly the same job as an artist. If you want to talk or paint about a subject, you will go like talk to experts, like understand better the subject. So this is the part. Then you have to program it. That's if I do the comparison, it's like the first try you try on canvas, it's not working, it's not good enough. You do it again, you're doing some different croquis. So we're doing like that. We're doing some R&D, research and development, in order to make the algorithm work. So then we let the machine do the visual work. But then you only have a JPEG file on your computer. And as many as we are, if we add the JPEG file, we will not do the same thing at the end. So we decided to do classical portraits, to put it in a golden wooden frame, and to sign with a mathematical formula. And all those choices are human choices. So I would say that it is exactly the same as photography when it appears more than 100 years ago. The principal criticisms that were made to photography, it's blurry, it's only for high qualified engineers, it's not art, and it's like so those kind, yeah, so those kind of critics are the same that we are at the moment that they give us, and we can see that then, like everybody is a bit enough of an artist through Instagram. There is some well-known photographs that everybody's agree that they are to say that they are artists. So I think, to answer your question, the human is still at the core of the artistic approach. As I said to you, you can see that we are present at every side of the artistic approach, and this is an artistic approach where we can leave the creative part to the algorithm, but all the artistic approach is created by the three of us. So I think the human is still present, and I think that in the future, an algorithm will never do something as a human. It's like science fiction, and you must like be aware that for now the algorithms are just tools, fantastic tools, but just tools.
This is just a question on have you experimented at all with using AI with other mediums besides visual mediums? Because I know recently there have been some developments with like wave nets. I don't know if you've heard of the Tacotron 2 project or anything like that, where they've managed to create a discrete mapping between like just individual letters to making a full text-to-speech synthesizer based on audio data. But I think currently you need tremendous amounts of data to actually get a good model from it. But I was curious if you had done anything with other mediums, and I was also curious, did you do any sort of feature tracking for the Bellamy project at all on the faces
what?
at all, or did it basically figure that out itself?
What do you mean by feature tracking?
Like did you track like facial features in the portraits to make sure they were aligned or anything like that, or
No,
was that all
no, no.
completely emergently developed by the algorithm?
No. It's like basic GAN, like just run the algorithm and.
Yeah, and to answer your question about other forms to use this type of algorithms, so we're kind of following what happens, for example, with music creation. We also saw that some movie scenarios could be created with artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are stuff like that we are really interested in and that we want to do in the future. But for now, we thought that the best way to use it and the most advanced one is the one with images, because for example with the sound, you can see in the pictures that there is like kind of a blurry part. So the human eyes can easily adapt to that, and it can picture the thing in your brain. But for the ear, it's kind of different, because if you hear like just a small noise that is disturbing, you will focus on that. And for example, with music, it's harder to do, and we're not there yet. So, but you could do it with like samples or partitions. But for now, we are the three of us. We don't have like that much time in our hands, so we tend to focus on what we can do, so images, sculptures, and we hope to be able to do that in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to complete this, so vision and images was like a first very natural step into using this type of algorithm into art creation, because in computer vision there are like it's in computer vision there are the most breakthroughs, and that there is the most work in AI research. So it was a very natural way to get into this. But yeah, we're interested in the future.
We are curious as hell of all those new technologies. So, of course, we know all those projects. We want to do them, but as we say, we are only three of us. The machine to do calculus online are really like, are really expensive. So for the moment, we just like look at it, and one day, if there is something really interesting and we can bring to the people who are looking at our art, we will. Okay, so as we said, like we are three friends working in the same flat, so we know each other for a very long time. So we have a decision process which is quite easy. It's like, are you okay? Are you okay? Okay, let's go for it. So we choose our name like that. I think Gauthier didn't. It was difficult for us to find a name, and Gauthier came up with a sentence like, oh, it could be obvious this name, and we say, okay, obvious, obvious, obvious. Okay, let's go for it.
And I will tell you from the experience of having these fine young gentlemen here this weekend, it's been an honor for us, and it's really great and refreshing to see that they're super humble, super down to earth, answer any question from anybody that asked. It's a real joy to have them for their first art fair exhibit at Art Fort Lauderdale, and to have them be gracious enough to be here at the NSU Art Museum Auditorium for this artDiscourse talk, made available for free thanks to the Community Foundation of Broward, Helen and Frank Stoic Fund, that we're able to share and give front row access to these brilliant minds to our community is really a beautiful thing. We're super grateful and super appreciative of your time,
And as us, we are extremely thankful of being invited here and to have the opportunity to do what we want to do, you know, like explain what is AI, and so it really fits well, and it's also like a great experience. Like the fair was very, very fun and very exciting, so yeah.
So sad
it's
to
like
go to
a
Paris.
wonderful weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.